Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the session on cloud technology. I am Ranga, a second year CSE student and a core member of GDSC JIIT 128. We have a very exciting speaker with us for the session, but first I would like to tell you that the registrations for the annual Solution Challenge Hackathon hosted by our team, BitBox 2.0, will be closing on 26th Feb. It's a 48-hour hackathon that will be held from 4th to 6th of March. So make sure you register yourselves before the deadline. Now, moving on to our speaker, we are extremely excited to introduce our speaker for the session. He has more than 2 decades of experience with technology, architecture, design, and programming. He helped enterprises start their transformation journeys to cloud native architecture, teaching over 1 million students through his brand in 28 minutes. I welcome Ranga to the session.
Glad to be here, Ram. Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome to the session, sir. Sir, starting with, can you let us know a bit about in 28 minutes and how did your journey getting into cloud begin?
Yeah. So, I have almost like 15 years of experience in the IT industry. I was into programming. I love programming, just like most of you guys out there. It's something I am really passionate about, and I was building a lot of web applications. And over a period of time, I got into architecture roles as well. But my primary focus was on programming because I love programming, and therefore I was
Mhm.
actually switching to and fro between programming and architect roles kind of throughout my career. And during this journey, I realized that I had a skill of teaching people. Like I had this way of breaking down things into simple things. Like you take a complex thing and probably break it and make it easy for people to understand. And I thought, okay, why not start something, build on it, and do something good with it. So that's where I started a YouTube channel, and slowly I went on to Udemy, and yeah, that's today taken us to where we are today. About 50 courses, maybe around, yeah, just on Udemy, maybe around 850,000 learners. So yeah, it's been a great journey.
Can you tell me what was the origin of the name in 28 minutes?
Yeah. If I have to list down the most frequently asked questions, it will be in the top five that I'm usually asked. So, like, during my work, actually, like to be like, maybe I should start with my programming story. I failed my Pascal exam, and
Okay.
that was the first time I failed in something. And yeah, I was busy watching the India Pakistan series 1999, and I failed my Pascal exam. And yeah, my computer programming journey was not off to a good start. So it really got off to a bad start. And from then on, one of the things I really learned was continuous learning is important. It's important. Uh, like if you want to use something for a long term, if you're mugging up for an exam, that's good. You clear the exam, you are done with it, you can forget everything. But if I'm preparing for a career, if I'm learning something to use it in the career, I found that learning continuously, like for a period of time every day, is better than trying to focus one day and learn everything. Right. So, for example, if you're learning Kubernetes,
Mhm.
I found
Right.
learning Kubernetes for half an hour a day is much
Mhm.
more easier and beneficial for you than trying to
Mhm.
learn Kubernetes in, let's say, a five day or a 10-day period, right? So
Mhm.
that's where, like at that point in time, I was searching for a brand name in 30 minutes to represent my thought process. In 30 minutes, yeah, it was too expensive for me to buy at that particular point in time. So I found something nearer to that in 28
Right.
minutes.
Awesome. So let's get into the questions, sir. We have a list of questions prepared for you to answer, all
Cool.
related to cloud.
Awesome.
So first question would be, what is cloud?
Yeah, cloud is somebody else's computer. As simple as that, right? So it's basically, instead of,
Mhm.
usually enterprises have their own data centers, and that's what, like earlier, like if you go 2 decades back, any enterprise would deploy their applications to servers in their data centers. And cloud is just nothing but computer which is not hosted in your data center, but it is in AWS's data center, or Azure's data center, or Google Cloud's data center, for example, right? So
Right.
that's what cloud is. Cloud is pretty simple. As a concept, it's very simple, except for the fact that, like, the enterprises like maintaining 100 servers versus maintaining 100,000 servers or million servers, right? You can do million servers much more efficiently, and that's where the cost advantages of cloud come into picture. Because when you're
Scaling.
maintaining million servers, you can bring automation and a lot of other things which enterprises can't do, and that's where infrastructure became very, very cheap. Like there is a
Right.
lot that we can talk about the cloud, but the initial starting point of the cloud was to make infrastructure available at a lower cost.
Okay. 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 And second question would be why cloud?
Right. So if you look at it, right, so today enterprises, when the journey started, enterprises started going towards the cloud because mainly for the cost reasons. It's easy. I mean, it's cheaper. Let's say there's a startup, right? So let's say Ram is starting a new company, right? 10 years
Okay.
back, if you started a new company, and let's say you want it to be a global company and you'd want to set up a data center in Sydney, you want your application to be hosted in New York, then it would have taken a lot of money to set all that up. But today, you can go to the cloud and say, I want a server in New York, I want a server in Amsterdam, I want a server in Sydney, and I want a server in Mumbai. And you can do that in minutes, right? That's the power that cloud gives to startups today, right? A startup, earlier, enterprises had this advantage of what we call as advantage of scale, right? So they
Right.
were big, they can invest money and they can buy infrastructure. And
Mhm.
that's where like the power now shifted to startups as well, right? So startups don't need to worry about either infrastructure. The other benefit is technology, right? So whatever innovation cloud is doing, right? Earlier it was just about infrastructure, but now it's not about infrastructure as service. It's about managed services. It's about serverless. It's about doing everything on the cloud. And whatever innovation Google Cloud is doing or Azure is doing or AWS is doing, these innovations are also available for the startups. So whatever technology was just available for enterprises a few years back, large ones, today even startups have access to the same thing. Actually, not just startups, right? You and me, for example, if I
Right.
now want to deploy a server everywhere around the world, I can do that in 5 minutes. That's the power
Right.
which was not available for us at any point in time. And this is transforming our industry, right? So IT 5 years back is completely different to IT today. And we are just at the cusp of it, right? We are just starting now. And I can't even think where we would be in a few years' time. I mean, uh, enterprises have few advantages, and therefore we have to learn the cloud. So as a student, as a learner, as somebody who's going to work in the IT industry, whatever enterprises are doing, you have to get good at it, right? So yeah, it has great value for enterprises, and therefore we don't have any other options but to learn it.
Right. I love your passion for cloud.
I mean,
So,
I'm a great believer in cloud. So
right.
actually, I even changed. Like earlier, I was actually like in 28 minutes was focused on a lot of things, and last 2 years I completely switched focus to cloud and DevOps. I feel
Okay.
cloud and DevOps are the things. I mean, which are going to, which are here to stay, not for decades. Maybe like a lot of times it's difficult to make predictions, but I feel
Right.
cloud is something I can be very, very sure about predicting that it would be here in a few decades' time. I don't know if Java would be there, as I frequently say, right? I don't know if Java would be there, Python would be there, JavaScript would be there or not. But cloud is here to stay.
Right. Okay. Moving on to the next question. How to get started in cloud computing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think today, one of the great things is each of the cloud providers have an incentive to make it easy to learn that specific cloud. So AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, the more talent they have who learn that specific cloud, the better it is for them. So they are doing a lot of things to make it easy to learn the cloud. A lot of these clouds also offer free certifications for almost all the learners, right? So yeah, the best way today, like if you are working somewhere, that's the best way to get started with the cloud, right? So if you are working on a project, like hands-on is the best way to start learning anything, right? So however, if you're not working anywhere, but you want a structured approach to learning the cloud, I think certifications have a role to play in there. So certifications typically give you a structure onto how to approach the cloud, what are the important areas, and it will give you focus for a long time. So if you are experienced, if you're working a project, that's the best way to learn. If you are not in a project, then I would say start somewhere. Uh, with a certification. Another option you also have is to, like, if you're a hands-on guy, if you're really hands-on, if you love developing applications, for example, one of the things you can try and do is to build a full stack application and deploy it to the
Right.
cloud. That's another way you
Mm.
can get started with the cloud as well. So multiple options, and there are tons of resources out there. Go to YouTube,
Right.
go to Udemy, go to Coursera. I mean,
Mm.
today we are in a world where if you want to get started with something, it's easy. The most difficult part is to choose which option to take to learn.
Right. 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 Do you have any recommendations for any courses or documentation where
As
one could
to,
learn cloud from?
I think cloud is generic, right? So probably you should get the first choice. Somebody who's starting with the cloud who needs to make is which cloud, right? So
Mm.
AWS or Azure or Google Cloud. So that's the first decision a lot of people take a long time over. Probably here we are
Right.
talking about Google Cloud, so you guys have already made the choice of going for Google Cloud. So
Right.
if your question is about starting with Google Cloud, I would say, like, if try some of the courses on Coursera. They're really, really good. Like the Coursera courses on Google Cloud are really good. And I have courses on Google Cloud too. They are really good. Google Cloud has its documentation. That's also a good place to start. And a friend of mine, Satish Vijay, he maintains the awesome GCP repository. So that's also another place where you can go there and find what all resources are there to start learning the cloud.
Okay. Lovely. Moving on to the next question. Does knowing coding or development beforehand help?
Absolutely. Good question, right? So over here, probably, like, because we are talking as part of the GDC, most of us are developers, programmers.
Right.
So yeah, it does help if you know programming, but I like cloud is something which is used by the entire enterprise, right? So if you are, let's say, going into Facebook and working, right? Facebook or any other company, uh, everybody, starting from the guy who's writing the requirements to the person who's deploying the application and doing operations, everybody in some way or the other is touched by the cloud. And
Right.
therefore today, like, there are different roles available on the cloud irrespective of whether you're technical or non-technical, right? So
Mhm.
like today, cloud is so widespread that almost everybody in the IT industry, I would think, should learn the cloud. So business folks, technical folks, and also management folks, leadership, they are all undergoing cloud trainings these days. So I like, depending on the role you're performing, if you're going to do a programming role and your application is going to be deployed on the cloud, then you need to know coding, right? But if, let's say, you are doing a functional role or a like more of a management kind of role, or you are aiming to for a leadership role, having a high level overview of the cloud is sufficient. So there you don't really need to know the coding and the dev aspect of it. At a high level, if you understand technology to an extent, and then you build on top of it and understand at a high level what are the different services that are offered by the cloud, that's sufficient as well. So it depends on what do you want to do with the cloud.
Right. So I would like to ask you a personal niche question for our audience, because most of our audience is from first and second year, doing their bachelor's in engineering most probably.
Awesome.
So mostly here in India, students are taught C and C++ like languages. So would having knowledge about a general purpose language like that would be of any help?
Absolutely. See, programming is about problem solving, and
Right.
language is a way of expressing it, right? So
Hmm.
your problem solving skill, whichever you are developing by learning C++, right, that
Hmm.
is really useful whichever language you go to in future. So
Okay.
the most important part of programming is learning the problem solving skill. So it doesn't matter which language you are starting with. As far as I'm concerned, I started with something called Pascal, and I like, for a long time in my career, I was playing with something called Power Builder, right? Those are no longer here, but whatever
Right.
skills I acquired by learning those things, I'm still using them today. I probably today code a lot of time in Java, Python, or Go, and still whatever I've learned there, I'm using it here. It's just that the way I express it is different. The language which I use is different. Whatever object oriented programming skills I learned with C++, I'm using them in Java and Python as well. So it's I mean, one of the things I like to do whenever I'm learning something is to focus on the fundamentals, right? When I'm talking
Right.
about C, the fundamental is
Mm,
programming. C is a language
mm,
where you express your thoughts. So
mm.
focus on programming, be good at programming, and use C to express your thoughts, right? If you look at it that way, then whatever learning you are having, like the syntax may be different. A language, different language might have a different syntax, but whatever you have learned, whatever your experience you have gained by solving problems with it, that experience will be useful throughout your life.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you on that. Moving on to our next question. Where and how to start learning cloud?
I think, yeah, as we discussed earlier, right? So
Yeah.
each of the cloud platforms provide a great, like if we are specifically talking about Google Cloud, I would say go to Coursera. Coursera might be a really, really good place. There are free courses. I mean, on Coursera, most of the courses look paid, but there is an audit option available. So you can go
Yes,
and
yes,
audit
yes,
the
yes.
course and try and learn it for free, right? So
Mm,
that's the best place I would say to start with it. I have my own courses on Google Cloud as well. Those might be good places to start. Go to YouTube and search. You will also find content there to start, like with Google Cloud. And like Google Cloud has its own documentation, but documentation might not be the first place you want to go to. You
right.
want to start getting a high level overview first through videos
Mm,
or like anything that you like, and
mm,
then get into like one of the like get when you want to go deep is when documentation is helpful. So at
right.
the start you would want to focus on making use of a video or a course or a textbook, which would help you to get started, right? Again, it how to learn varies from person to person. I have like
Mm,
like I have number of team members. I like to read books. You can see a lot of books behind me. So whenever I want to learn something, I would actually start with reading a book. However, a lot of my team members uh, hate books, right? So they want
right.
videos, right? So it's very, very important to work out what works for you. There is no one way of learning, right? So when one of
Right.
the thing about IT careers, right, the moment you chose computer sciences as your career, you are like as like Kaushik is one of my friends, and I was actually talking to him live on a video earlier, and he said
Mm-hmm.
when you are actually getting into a computer science related career, you are subscribing for lifelong learning. So it's like, and you have to work out what's the best way to learn. It's not just the college you'd learn, but throughout your career you need to keep learning because technology changes. So
Right.
I think the important question is what is effective for you. Do you like reading
Mm,
books? Do you like do you like watching videos, or do you find do you like watching videos from a specific person, right? So that's what you need to figure out. Once you figure that out, uh, make sure that you do hands-on, right? Any approach you take, whether you are reading from a book, watching a video, make sure that you do hands-on, right? uh, that's the way you'll remember things for a long time. So those yeah, find out what works for you and be hands-on.
right. Awesome. Right. So, our next question is kind of related to this. How would one choose their first cloud service provider and major differences between them?
Yeah, today like that's $1 million question, especially as a learner, right? I think you are asking this from a perspective of a learner and not from an enterprise. Enterprise
Right.
has different way of choosing which cloud platform to choose. There are a
Mm,
lot of factors which go into picture. Probably will not need even worry about it. When a learner is
mm,
choosing a cloud platform, I would think the decision should be made based on how much experience does he have surrounding him learning a specific cloud or knowing a specific cloud. So if I have a lot of people in my circle who know AWS and they are ready to help me, I would start with AWS, right? Because
right.
5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, each of these cloud platforms will be doing really, really well. So there is a severe job shortage in each of the cloud platforms. So irrespective of the cloud platform you choose, you will do really, really well. So there is no
Right.
reason why you should spend a lot of time thinking about which cloud to choose. Choose one which you have support to learn very fast. And another important thing is to focus on learning that cloud for a significant amount of time. A
Mm,
lot like some of the times I see people switching from AWS to Azure to Google Cloud, uh, even before they understand one of the clouds very, very well. And that is a recipe for failure. I would recommend choose
right.
one. I mean, if you want to spend a week, spend 2 weeks, choose one, stick with it, and learn it very, very well. Stick it with it for a
Mm-hmm.
year or two, and then probably you would want to venture into other clouds, because whatever, just like language programming, right? Whatever skills you are gaining in programming by programming a lot, writing a lot of programs. Similar kind of experience you would have when you would want to learn the first cloud. You need to understand the cloud fundamentals. For me, like the fundamentals of the cloud are the same irrespective of GCP or AWS or Azure. However, you'll have the same experience you would have when you shift from, let's say, C to Java to Python in few days. At the end, you'll not remember anything, right? So the same experience you'll have if you keep switching between clouds. So stick to it. I mean, pick one, stick to it. So those would be the two recommendations. And as far as the differences go, like I think from a learner perspective, the important thing is AWS is the first cloud, actually first cloud which became really popular. It really brought in a lot of services, and it was like really, really popular. 5 years back, probably we were not even talking about Azure and Google Cloud at all. Right? So AWS was almost the only thing which I was out there which was popular. But since the time Satya Nadella took over, Azure has started becoming much more popular. And over a period of time, now it's difficult to decide which is number one, Azure or AWS. Right. So, and from the time Thomas Kurian took over, I think Google Cloud also started doing really, really well. Google Cloud is today the fastest growing cloud. So, yeah, there's nothing to choose between them. So, if you are looking at it from a learning perspective, there's nothing to choose between them. The only factor I would add is if there's a specific student or learner who's interested in machine learning, right? That area alone, I would say Google Cloud has a big advantage. So, if you are interested in machine learning, start with Google Cloud. But other than that, I would not worry about which cloud to start with a lot.
Okay, very well said. So I can see we have a few questions from the comments. So let's start answering them. Are there any programs offered for students?
Sorry, are there any
programs yeah, he just highlighted that question.
Yeah, I think Google Cloud has a program offered for students, right? I think they offer, I don't know if they offer courses, but they offer certifications for free, right? You can do a certification for free. I don't know the details, probably. Ram, are you aware of any things that Google Cloud offers for students related to certifications and things like that?
Yeah, actually, because one of our society's flagship event is 30 days of Google Cloud. So we helped our first year juniors to participate in that 30 days of Google Cloud, right? So in that, you can actually get a hands-on experience of cloud. They offer you free credit, so you can use their site and use their features and all.
Awesome.
So it was a really nice experience for them.
Perfect. I think that would be a great way to start their journey. So I think this might even be the answer to your earlier question as well. So if they're offering something for students, probably that's much more customized than whatever learning that's outside.
Right. Okay. Another question from the comments. Sir, can you recommend some hands-on projects one can build?
Yeah, I think it depends on what kind of projects you want to build, right? So if you want to build a full stack application, or you want to do machine learning, or if you want to do data engineering, right? It depends on that. So yeah, depending on the area of your choice, you can pick up a project, right? So I'm mostly a compute guy. So probably I would say build a full stack application end to end, maybe something with Angular in the front end, a REST API in the back end, maybe Python or Go or any of the language of your choice, and have it connect to a database, right? So have it maybe like Cloud SQL or Cloud Spanner. So that would be a great first point to start with a full stack application. But if you are interested in data and data engineering, probably you can pick up something related to data engineering or machine learning. I think those three might be the places you'd want to start.
Right. Okay, so let's get back to our questions. So building your resume for the cloud engineer role, what would you recommend? Like
absolutely
important things.
Yeah, the important things are two, right? A are having a certification on it. I think that's very, very important today, because it's a lot of people filter resumes just based on certification. So it's a big plus. Number two, I would say demonstrable experience of using the cloud, right? So you should have some way to showcase the knowledge you gained in deploying applications to the cloud. So those are the two things I would look for when I start looking at it, right? So some kind of way, like whether it's a GitHub profile or a website you built or something to show a recruiter that you have experience building applications, right? So those two things would be the two things I would focus on. If you have those two things today, like there are so many jobs. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities available.
Like, according to you, should every software professional have some cloud in their resumes?
Not really. I wouldn't
Not really.
think so. Uh, uh, because still, I would say cloud is just okay. Let's put it this way, right? So, if you ask me what is important to
Hmm.
have, programming or cloud in my resume, I would say
Right.
programming. I would say data
Okay.
structures. I would say algorithms. I would
Hmm.
say system design. That's much more important than the cloud, right? So, if you have all this, then cloud is an add-on. Cloud is a great add-on to have.
Right.
So yeah, it's whichever way you see it, cloud is a secondary skill. Because if you are programming, your primary skill is programming. If you're a developer, you are
Hmm.
building apps, right?
Hmm.
You are deploying it to cloud. Cloud is secondary skill. uh, so you should be good at whatever you're doing. That's the number one thing. So if you don't know to program, and if you're applying to a developer role, even if you know the cloud, it does not really matter. If you don't know to build applications, if you don't know to solve
Right.
problems, right?
Hmm.
So the primary skill is problem solving. The place where you apply it, I mean, the place where your applications are deployed is the cloud.
Right. Awesome. Right. Let's take another question from the comments. Are certifications enough to get a job or internship in cloud technology?
Yeah, I think certifications are a great starting point, but the most important things, as I said last in the last question, is your programming skills. If you're applying for a programming role, be good at programming, and cloud would be a great add-on, and that would be more than sufficient, right? So if you have experience with programming, you know how to solve problems with a specific language, whether it's Python, Java, or Go, or JavaScript, even front end, right? If you know that, and if you know the cloud, and if you have like if you have deployed applications to the cloud, and if you have a certification as an add-on, I think that's a great combination to have.
Right. So, our next question is kind of related to what you said in the beginning. Uh, like, what's expected in the next 10 years? I know you said cloud is here to stay, but if you get deep into your vision, what do you see for cloud in next 10 years?
I'm not sure. I can. The only thing I can like confidently tell is cloud is going to be here. I don't
Right.
even know if it would be AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. Right? It might
Okay.
even be a cloud ABCD. I have no idea. So some
Right.
cloud will be there, which will be really really popular by that time. But 10 years is too long for a technology world. So I have no idea how to predict it. If you asked me 10 years back, if it would be like this, I would not even have guessed that there would be something called a cloud, right?
Right.
And also, like if you look at the last 10 years, like the advances
Hmm.
in machine learning, the algorithms, and the simplicity in running machine learning algorithms on the cloud today, right? Those kind of advances I would not have guessed at all. So I'm not sure what to expect in the next 10 years.
Right.
But cloud will be here, and probably JavaScript would be here because it's the language of the browser.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't know about any of the other languages, technologies, if they would be here for 10 years. But again, I find like as a programmer trying to look at technology, trying to look further than 6 to 12 months uh, is of very very practical, I mean practically of almost no advantage, because even enterprises like earlier used to have 5-year roadmaps. Today they
Right.
have 6-month roadmaps because they don't even know what technology is going to come in 12 months. So they
Right.
started even cutting down, and they started thinking in 6 to 12 months cycle. So I think that's the best way to look at it, even as a learner. Yeah, we can have fun discussing what would be happening in 10 years, but no practical use, I would guess.
Right. Right. A very honest answer. Okay. We have a kind of related question in the comments. What are some landmark changes in the last 10 years of cloud? Looking back,
Looking back, landmark changes in 10 years of
last 10 years.
cloud.
Right.
uh, I mean, I would say 10 years, like number one is cloud. Like I think that's the biggest change which is out there. We started with
Right.
infrastructure as a service. I would say the second biggest thing is managed services as a concept. Right? The fact
Okay.
that today I would be able to deploy any application I would want with a like with a few clicks of button to the cloud. Earlier, like deploy an application was so complex. Like if I would want to take an application live, I have to first go get the OS, get the get some Java or Python installed. Then so there was a lot of things that were involved. Now I just give a deployable unit and it's done. I like the advance of containers, the advance of container orchestration, and the
Right.
advance of DevOps as a whole, right? CI, CD, like those advancements, right? The process of how we build software. I think those would be some of the important ones. But for me, the thing which takes the cake is machine learning. The advances that we made in the last 10 years in terms of learning from data, right?
Right.
That concept itself, I would say, is the biggest progress that we made. So cloud and the advances in machine learning algorithms, those would be the top two for me.
Okay. Right. Well said. So our next question is, what is DevOps? If you can
Okay.
get into DevOps briefly.
Cool. Actually, like DevOps is nothing new. When we build, most of you guys actually will get into an enterprise and you'd start building applications, or most of you have already started building applications. And like when we start building applications, you'd see that there are a lot of steps which are involved, starting from development to taking it to production, even before there is business analysis and a lot of things. What we found in the experience, actually, like when we look back, software engineering is still a very, very young field, right? We don't have more than 50 years of experience building software. So it's still a young field. We don't know what is the best process of building software because there are so many members, right? So we are talking about 200, 300 members combining on a single project and working together to build something really good, right? So I would say we are still at a young stage in terms of how the process we follow in building software. But however, these are some of the learnings. One was communication is very, very important, right? Because there are a lot of people involved. Like you have business team, you have the development, testing, operations, and a lot of other teams which are involved. Communication between these teams is very, very important. That's one thing which we learned. The other thing which we learned was automating and getting quick feedback. That's very, very important. You don't want to do things manually. As many things as possible, you'd want to automate. Right? The reason why we build software itself is to automate something. And we also want to automate the steps in taking the software from one stage to another. Right? So we found that by automating, we can repeat it faster. If I do it manually, probably to do that again and again will take a lot more time. And there's every chance that I make a mistake. Right? However, if I automate it, the chance that there is a mistake is less. And also I will be able to do it faster. Right? So this is something which we learned the last, from the start of developing software, right? But the great thing in the last few years is that we started having technology to automate a lot more things now, right? And that's what we call DevOps, right? So with DevOps, what we do is we kind of say, okay, we would bring development, operations, everybody together. The reason is improving communication. And we know that improving communication is the best thing to do. So that's one thing which DevOps focuses on. The other thing is automation, that you try and automate, like there are things like CI, CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment. What you're automating is how you build the application, how you deploy the application. Another aspect which we frequently talk about when we talk about DevOps is infrastructure as code, right? To deploy your application, you need an environment. Creation of that environment also is difficult, right? If you are familiar with Google Cloud, even to deploy a full stack application, you might want to provision a lot of resources, right? 10, 15 resources. Doing that manually will take time. If you are going to click through the screens, you don't want to do that. That's what is called infrastructure as code. And operations is another big thing, right? So if you have millions of users, then you want to have a team which is monitoring the application. Like it cannot be a manual thing, right? It cannot be like a server goes down, like there's somebody checking it, or you get notified from users. That also should be automated. So so the entire cycle of automation, starting from development to deployment, is what people typically call DevOps, right? It's nothing new. It's just one step, because today we have the technology to automate a lot more things. We kind of coin a term. We come with the buzzword DevOps, and that's what we call it today.
Right. Okay. So our next question is cloud versus DevOps.
Right. So I don't think it's cloud versus DevOps. It should be cloud and DevOps.
Okay.
especially if you're looking at it from a learner perspective. There are two perspectives I can look at it, right? Enterprise, learners. There are still a lot of enterprises who do majority of their things on premises. So they can do DevOps either on premises or on the cloud. But if you're a learner starting today, I would think the best place to start learning DevOps is the cloud, right? If you're trying to learn continuous integration, continuous deployment, the best services to use to learn would be either Azure DevOps or Cloud Build. I would not recommend you to install Jenkins and try it, right? It's too much of an overhead. So if you're learning DevOps, your focus is on understanding the concepts of DevOps, start with the cloud. Start with the cloud, understand the cloud, and then do DevOps on the cloud. Then you can focus really on the DevOps concepts rather than, okay, what are the problems I would get when I install Jenkins? Those are not really important. Those are like, in my best estimation, Jenkins will not be here in 5 years. So like most of the two on-premises things, whatever we install locally and do, probably most of them will not be here. So most of them will be replaced by cloud services. So why focus on those? Start getting to the cloud. So learn cloud and then do DevOps on the cloud. So that would be my recommendation.
Right. Okay.
But you might be going to an enterprise where you might be using Jenkins. In that case, you can easily learn that, right? I mean, if you know Cloud Build, it's easy. Like the knowledge is transferable. It's not like, you are not learning anything, but it's easier to learn on the cloud.
Right. Absolutely. Right. So our next question is cloud's relevance for developers in different stacks like web and ML, etc.
Absolutely. I mean, today, if you ask me which is the best place to do machine learning, cloud. Which is the best place to do data engineering, cloud. Web applications probably like I would say, I mean, the complexity in running or deploying web application is not as complex as a machine learning or a data engineering thing, but still, I would say cloud has big advantages when it comes to web applications as well. So irrespective of whichever stack you are on, if you are a developer, I think cloud has a role to play.
Right.
Unless you are developing.
No, please continue.
No, I was saying if you are, let's say, developing libraries or things like that, then probably you don't need the cloud. But other than that, or you are building a framework, right? So if you're not building an app, but a framework, in those kind of situations, probably you don't really need to know the cloud. But other than that, most of the developers will eventually be working with cloud in a few years' time.
Right. So back to the thing of relevance of cloud to engineering roles that don't primarily focus on cloud, like similar kind of question to having cloud in your resume. So your answer was no, not really.
Sorry, I didn't get the question, Ram.
Okay. So it's kind of similar to the thing where I asked you that should a web developer have cloud in their resume?
Yeah.
Is your answer still the same? Not really.
Not really. If you're a good web developer, that's awesome, right? That's a skill which is difficult to learn. I would say cloud is easy to learn. Programming is difficult to learn. Building applications is difficult to learn. Cloud is not difficult. Not as difficult, at least, as building applications or learning to program well.
Right. Okay. I guess that sums up all of our questions. It was a pleasure having you, sir. I'm sure your insights will be really helpful to everyone watching. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks a lot, Ram. It was a pleasure being here.
Would you like to add anything?
I would say, like, I think this is a great time to be a programmer. The value that enterprises have for really, really good programmers today is amazing. And love what you do. Like you have the chance to change the world, so go ahead. And this is also a great time to be in India, because there are so many startups which are coming in from India now than ever before. So this is the best time to be a programmer. This is the best time to be in India. So all the things are working out for you guys. So go ahead, keep learning every day.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Ram.
Now, a final reminder to everyone to get themselves registered for BitBox 2.0. You can find the link in the description. Thank you for joining.